Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So now I just let folks go.
Yeah, let's see
Cool.
who comes in. I think it's just us right now.
Cool. I'll wait. I'll wait a couple minutes here and wait for folks to come
Sure.
in. See what we get. I guess I set up the fireside element of the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that guitar actually there, or is that part of the?
No, this is the guitar I use.
Okay.
That's what I use for. Uh, that's what I use to practice with Rick. So I've been taking lessons with Rick Russian uh,
Okay.
via Zoom. So that is the guitar I use for that.
Well, there you go. I
Yes.
haven't seen Rick in a while.
I mean, he's finally back to work, so that's been a good thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he's finally essentially getting back out there into some clubs. I know it was tough for a while, as he was telling me. So I'm glad he's able to get out there, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, since I guess we're recording this now, we should
Cool.
probably talk about the subject instead of just, you
Cool.
know,
Um,
uh, chit chatting.
attracting African American investing and entrepreneurs to Chattanooga. This is a conversation you and I have had plenty of times
Yeah.
for for many reasons. I think that it's important for folks to understand the opportunities that are available in Chattanooga and why. I think as a person who has come to Chattanooga and invested in Chattanooga and in the people of Chattanooga, um, I can speak to experience, but I think that having a plan and continue wanting to is a conversation that we can have, right?
Right. Yes.
Based on the fact that I have spoken to, one of the main things that attracted me to being in Chattanooga was off of a conversation that I had with Mayor Burke from being there. Your tour of Chattanooga was the main convincer. That was the one that said, okay, let's get some work done down in Chattanooga. But, when Mayor Burke said to me that he wanted Chattanooga to be the home of black entrepreneurship and black entrepreneurs, I saw that as a commitment for decades, not as a commitment for one term or one administration. I don't have a vote in Chattanooga. I'm not a resident of Chattanooga, so my opinion is strictly that of caring and wanting to see better for my friends that I've made there, and wanting to see better for the community that I know deserves what it can get. So let's go from there, Monty.
Yeah. Well, I do live here, and as we all know, I'm running for mayor currently. I think that Chattanooga is one of those places that does an excellent job of talking the talk. Like if you go and you meet with Mayor Burke, or you meet with anybody, you can go to the Chamber of Commerce or wherever, and you will leave that meeting thinking, "Wow, Chattanooga really understands this. I want to do some business in Chattanooga. I can be successful there." And then you come back 3 days later, and it's like those conversations never happen. I think we fail on execution when it comes to African American entrepreneurs and attracting African American investors. That's a whole other subject. You know, we don't have huge wealth in the African American community here, but we have doctors who have tremendous assets. There are investors all around the United States who we could bring here, and you and I have been engaged in conversations before where we talked about why don't we just bring some people here for 3 days. So the city picks up the tab, everybody comes here, and we just haven't been able to get those things done. So we get an A in flapping our gums and talking, and I think we get an F when it comes to execution.
So it depends on who's doing the grading. right? Because everything is scaled.
Right.
And since I put my money where my mouth is, as an entrepreneur who's coming to town, has actually put my money up to bring in other entrepreneurs so they can see the city. I've actually paid for events to happen in Chattanooga out of my pocket, with deep commitments from the city to do X, Y, or Z. The city lacks in execution. That's fact, right? That's chronicled in your own newspapers. It's chronicled throughout for a reason. Why is it lacking in execution? It doesn't believe, right? I think that at times the city is like, okay, well, if you want us to believe in you, put up and we'll come in and follow thereafter. Well, as an entrepreneur, why would I want you to come in after me?
Right.
That's the thought process of an entrepreneur, right? I want you to come up and show and prove that I should be here and that I should invest in this community, right?
Yeah.
For me, I look at it different, right? Not differently, I look at it two ways. So I look at it from a standpoint of investing in a community and the people in that community, right? And so that's completely about, I'm not looking for a direct ROI per se from a cash investment into something, right? Then I'm looking at the cash investment side of something, like a straight entrepreneur should, right? What is the bottom line with regards to why I'm in this town, and how does it affect my asset culture, right? Why does it bring an asset element to the business that I have, right? Are they giving me the things I need to be there, right? Just like I look at any other market, right? If I was looking at a market and I was buying, if I was trading other currency, right? I would want a government that sees me purchasing a lot of that currency to give me some kind of subsidies or incentives for making that economy work, right?
Right. Yeah.
So maybe Chattanooga should switch to crypto. Anyway, that's a whole other. But the city wants to be able to essentially. The city wants to be able to attract folks and bring traction, I feel, from other locations, right? I think Chattanooga has a lot of the infrastructures that big towns don't have, period.
Oh, yeah.
Lacking the ability to have that. And I think that Chattanooga can bring that in via the appropriate conversations and promises and commitments to helping the community.
Yeah. So 4 years ago, as a private citizen, I'm just a guy who wants Chattanooga to succeed. I am introduced to David Lloyd, who is the CEO of a large construction company based in Oklahoma City. I think at the time their bonding capacity was $30 million a job. So, I mean, they're a sizable construction company. The company was HGL Construction. HGL was wanting to open a southeastern office, and they were interested in having that office in Chattanooga. So I invited David to come to Chattanooga. He spent his own money, because again, I'm not representing anybody. I'm just private citizen me. I spent 2 days taking David around, introducing him to everybody. I mean, from the mayor to, people at the chamber, you name it, I introduced David to them. So at the end of the day, David says, well, I would love to come to Chattanooga, and I would love to open an office in Chattanooga, but I've never done any work there. I don't know any of the subcontractors. So, what I would want you to do is give me just one job, just, negotiate a job with me so that it gives me a chance to form relationships with subcontractors and kind of get the lay of the land. And then after that, I'm on my own. Mm-hmm. Well, that sounded reasonable to me. But at the end of the day, Chattanooga, the government, the chamber, the powers that be said, no, everything here is competitive bid. It wouldn't be right for us to give you one job. And so we don't have HGL construction here. We have this booming economy with all of this construction going on, and we don't have an African-American owned general contractor that can participate in any of it because the city refused to give HGL just one negotiated job so that they could kind of get the lay of the land. It seemed like a reasonable request, but the answer was no.
Right. Why was the answer no? I wasn't in those conversations. Obviously, I can't say why. It's unbelievable that happened because we know that there's more than enough qualified contractors that could hold it down for the city and have held it down for the city in many ways. But they aren't getting those contracts. But I don't know the inside portion of those politics, right? To that point, why would an entrepreneur then, seeing the lack of opportunities internally for those who have spent the time working hard, smiling, glad handing all the old school folks there, to get the opportunities and the shots, and they're still not getting them? What is going to change under your administration for them to get that shot? Not under a status quo or I'm going to do a certain percentage of X. It's like, well, look, we've earned these opportunities. The door should open more than just a half inch.
Well, I lived in Atlanta for 15 years. Atlanta is 110 miles down the road from Chattanooga. They, over the past several decades, have created enormous African-American wealth. There's a huge African-American middle class, and there are, wealthy African-Americans. But there are also plenty of rich white people. The white middle class in Atlanta is huge. So that the gains that African-Americans have made in Atlanta have not come at the expense of anybody. It's because they've grown their economy. It's because they were interested in matters of equity. And so I don't think we have to look very far for best practices. And at the end of the day, there are two things that Atlanta has that we don't have here in Chattanooga. If you want to do business with the city of Atlanta or any public entity like the airport or a public-private partnership, the city of Atlanta says a couple of things. We are going to give preference to local companies. Before we start looking outside of Atlanta, we're going to do business with Atlantans. And if you are outside the city of Atlanta and you want to do business with us, you better find some partners in Atlanta so that you will be able to be competitive. The other thing that they do is they say, we give extra points if you are using minority and women-owned vendors or subcontractors. And so if you really want to get that airport job, you will do your best to make sure that you're using minority and women-owned subcontractors. So those are two things that I want to enact immediately here in Chattanooga. There's no reason why we can't do what Atlanta has done, because we can't say it won't work, because all we have to do is look 110 miles down the road and see that it works, and it works for everybody. So that's what I want to do in Chattanooga, first and foremost.
As far as the ability to use this great internet, right, to attract entrepreneurs and attract opportunities for specifically African-American entrepreneurs, how do you feel that you would be different than what's currently happened when folks don't understand or have told me specifically, the gig doesn't matter to us, it's not applying to us, and it's not helping us? So how do you feel that you're going to allow entrepreneurship to thrive with being able to provide access to this gig to entrepreneurs and to the African American community understanding what it can do for them?
I'm going to do two things. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the Black Enterprise 100, the 100 largest African American companies in America, and I am going to go and recruit them. I'm going to make a case for them coming to Chattanooga because, quite honestly, they haven't been recruited by anybody. Nobody is begging them to come anywhere. And I'm going to give them a full court press and say, come to Chattanooga, you're going to love it, and you're going to have a friend in Mayor Bruell.
Right.
The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the African American, creative community. I'm going to go to advertising agencies. I'm going to go to, gaming, game developers. I'm going to look at, just software developers in general, and I'm going to make the case that you will love Chattanooga. And unlike any other administration, I am going to say, come here for the weekend. Come here for 2 days on us. We will pick up the tab for you to come visit. We will show you around. I'll give them the tour I gave you. And I'll say, you'll see how you can be successful here in Chattanooga, because I don't believe we have the base here that we can grow organically. We're going to have to jumpstart what we're doing by going outside to the Black Enterprise 100 or to software developers in Southern and Northern California. But we're going to have to do something to get people here. Once we have proven the concept, then I think that people in Chattanooga, as you know, Chattanoogans are not the fastest to change, not the fastest to adopt change. I think when they see the model working, that's when Chattanoogans will get on board.
Definitely, I agree. I've seen that firsthand, obviously, and that's one of the things I love about Chattanooga is the communal element of the city, right? When it decides to build communities around certain elements, it's done that. I saw that, obviously, in the gaming community in several ways. As far as just that, a lot of entrepreneurs are folks who bring in live events, and bring in things that are relative to what is happening now, right? Being able to broadcast the world because of this limited access perspective. I've had the opportunity of bringing in Anthony Hemingway into, Chattanooga. He's a big name in Hollywood, multi-million-dollar first look deals all over. When you talk about somebody like that has an access to take over a town and truly put Chattanooga in the map specifically for what a production can be,
right?
What a series could be overall, not just one movie production, but a series opportunity, or creating what Tyler Perry did,
right?
Overall commerce that then affects all the vendors around. What do you think is going to be the best bet in attracting folks to do that and stay in Chattanooga?
The city of Chattanooga owns 88,000 acres of real estate. A lot of it is vacant land or unused warehouses. It's sitting there off the tax rolls, not providing revenue to the city, not doing anything for the taxpayers. I think that the city has got to be more aggressive in developing the real estate it has in its own portfolio. So when I'm looking at the TV and film production area, I'm going to say, come here, look at what we can do. We can build a studio here. We could really help you, and your cost of production is going to go down. We're halfway between Atlanta and Nashville. Whatever is needed is no more than 2 hours, away from you, and we can pull it here. And I really think that's an opportunity for us. But again, Chattanooga government has not really seen fit to do anything with all of the unused land, all of the underperforming assets that it owns. And, why wouldn't we want to help somebody build a studio here? I mean, it makes no sense why we haven't already done that.
Heard. Now let's take it to a completely other, just extreme side, right? So let's say an entrepreneur steps into town, looks around town, and he says, I don't see enough black faces with ownership around here. And I don't see enough black-owned businesses in key places in Chattanooga. What do you say to that entrepreneur?
Well, it's a chicken and egg kind of questions. I have a friend who's head of a medical department at Erlanger Hospital, which is our major, teaching hospital here in Chattanooga. And he has jobs for physicians that pay, $1 million a year, $1.5 million a year. And he brings minority doctors to Chattanooga, and they love the hospital. They love the opportunity. And then he takes them out to dinner, and they look around the restaurant and they see only white faces. And they ask, well, what's this going to be like for my family? What's it? I'm going to be good. I'm at the hospital all the time, but what about my, spouse and kids? And they lose a lot of talent not because they don't like the hospital, not because they don't like the salary. They lose talent because of the culture. They lose talent because when people go out to dinner, they don't see themselves. They don't see people like themselves. And so what I would say, to that minority entrepreneur, that minority investor, I would say, just like a mall has an anchor tenant, you need to come here and be our anchor tenant. And then we will change the culture around you. We will invest to make it better. And by your hiring decisions, by the people you bring to town, that's how we're going to change the culture. But somebody's got to be first. And the big opportunity is to that person who says, I want to be first. But they've got to have a right partner. And we don't have a mayor that will play ball right now.
With regards to on the ground, one of the things that attracted me to Chattanooga was the sale of public and private partnerships being so amazing, right? And then you see spending that happens in Chattanooga in different sectors and different areas. You see where certain things lie, right? You see where you get to do certain types of business and where you can't. You see where certain zones are laid out and where certain zones are not, et cetera, et cetera. In navigating that and making the playing ground fair so that it's not the same people winning and getting all the money, how do you plan to change that for the local entrepreneur? An entrepreneur in town who wants to link up with a local entrepreneur to create those jobs, right? Create those long-term opportunities that aren't the 2-year, 3-year, quick, turnover things, but sustain 10, 20, 30-year, moves. How are you going to be able to help in doing that?
Yeah, networking is clearly a problem here. You have spent time in Chattanooga, so you know that if we, go to a function at the Edney building, we can go to 5 different things on 5 different days of the week. And when you look around the room, you'll say, oh, there's diversity here. There's a diverse crowd here. But after a while, you realize it's the same people over and over and over again. Yeah. We're not reaching out into the community. We're not bringing, other people to the table. We are just going to have to go out and get some other people. In all of Chattanooga, for example, we have only one African-American architect, and he is nearing the end of his career. I mean, he's got one foot in retirement. why we can't attract young African American architects to Chattanooga, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's about making connection, and it's not about holding an event downtown and waiting for people to come to that event. We're going to have to go out into neighborhoods. We're going to have to go out into the communities where businesses are, where people live. I like to, say to business people in downtown Chattanooga, I said, if you wanted to go fishing, would you step outside your office building on Market Street or Broad Street with your fishing pole and then complain that no fish are coming by? People would think that's crazy. But yet, all the time, we say, I don't know why no African Americans come down here. I don't know why, African Americans don't apply for this. I don't know why I'm not seeing any African Americans. Well, have you gone to any African American communities? Have you spoken to any African American businesses? And the answer is no. We don't seem to make the effort. I mean, things that are logical in other parts of life, we don't seem to view as logical when it comes to investing in minority-owned companies and doing business with them. It's really just crazy.
Definitely. Just so we can get more into, I want to definitely answer or speak about Tamara's question here. The city wants a certain type of entrepreneur. In the city wanting a certain type of entrepreneur, what would you answer that as, right? Because I think as an entrepreneur, we talked about this right before we went live. Like I look at two sides of the question always, right?
Yeah.
So, and I love that. I love that question because that's a very front-sided question of like, we want a certain type of person, but what would make that person want to come to you? Right? What makes Chattanooga so provocative? What makes it so intriguing? I know because I've committed to it. I've committed to it financially. I mean, we'll get into my experiences or an experience I've had in Chattanooga where I made an investment in Chattanooga and watched everyone around me make money. And the partner that I brought in, when we just go, what just happened, right? Again, building community though, and I think that the commitment into building community was the most important part of that. Which is again, you got to invest in the community element of Chattanooga.
Right.
So, how would you answer that?
Well, there are three things that I think attract people to Chattanooga. Number one is quality of life. We are in a beautiful setting here. We've got 20 miles of the Tennessee River flowing right through the middle of town. Within 20 minutes, you can be whitewater, canoeing or kayaking. You can be hiking in pristine wilderness with no, city in sight. That's one thing. The other thing is our cost of living. You look up the road to Nashville and you see what it costs to do business in Nashville. You look down the road to Atlanta, you see what it costs to do business there. And you say, Chattanooga is a value. Chattanooga is this undiscovered, gem. We should be, exactly there. And then the third thing is that geographic proximity that I just referenced. We are equidistant between Atlanta, Nashville, Birmingham, Huntsville, and Knoxville. There's so much opportunity. I forget the name of the ad agency that you introduced to Chattanooga, but they were interested in setting an office here because they could call on clients in both Atlanta and Nashville and really service them just as well from Chattanooga. But their cost would be a fraction of what they'd be in those other cities. So those are the natural reasons that people want to come here. There's actually someone, joining us in this session, Tom Gaddis. of Ether learning. Tom, if you would, I would love for you to pick up the mic and join this conversation and talk about Ether's introduction to Chattanooga and what your experience has been in getting your company established here. I know I'm putting you on the spot. You don't have to do it, but that would be great if you would do that. Okay, Tom Gaddis is picking up the mic.
All right. Does that work?
Yeah, awesome. There he is.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
So Tom, good afternoon. Tom knows what it's like to be attracted by the allure of Chattanooga and then run into the reality of actually trying to do business here.
Yeah, it's challenging. Chattanooga is a great city, and it was certainly very attractive to my wife and I. In particular, for one, it's close to where our families are from, and I like to say I'm a refugee of Alabama. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama. But it was hard. It was really hard. I think we got a lot of excitement built around what we were trying to do. A lot of people showed interest, but nobody was sort of willing to take that next step. And it's a critique, but on one hand, I get it. Right? We're risky. I understand that.
Right.
But we had some really, unique opportunities and a really interesting platform that could have been, tremendously beneficial to the city and particularly around education. And I know that's one of the significant challenges that the city's facing. Definitely. Is that what you wanted, Monty?
I think that was a sanitized, politically correct version. I think that was really good.
When we talk in person, you can lay it to me straight.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's exactly it. So,
no, Tom. I mean, look, as a person who's come in and experienced similar things, I think that getting the community to understand something and adapt it faster than what, let's say, the risk we have to take in not only adapting our own products and our own ideas into the educational component of it, which in a community becomes much larger of an investment, while you try and get somebody to adapt is tough. It's very tough. And oftentimes that could lead to the community is going to be fine and stay there, but you will end up being drained because you're the one who's putting in the capital investment.
Sure.
Maybe go ahead, Tom.
Maybe, Monty, I can plant a seed for the future mayor of Chattanooga. So I was listening to another session a bit ago with Alex Lavich, tech companies, I assume. I sort of started it in the middle, but one of them said something. I think the question was asked, if you were mayor and money was no object, what would you propose? And one of them said something about starting an innovation fund, right? Starting a fund to attract innovative startups, to attract companies that are really thinking outside of the box that could potentially have a dramatic impact on the city and its people, would be a tremendous idea. And something like that would have given a young company like ours a leg up and given us that little bit of security that we needed to leave our comfortable, cushy jobs, move to Chattanooga, and start something really exciting.
Yeah. So the problem that we have in terms of funding startups taking risks with new ventures is that we have, probably a half dozen different funds here. Mm-hmm. But the limited partners in those funds are all the same people. And so what tends to happen in Chattanooga is when one fund rejects a funding opportunity, they all reject the funding opportunity. And when one fund accepts that or accepts the investment opportunity, they all do it. And so we have this kind of all or nothing investment culture here that I think, we're not well served by. I would love, someone to create a fund who's not from here, who doesn't go to the country club with the other limited partners, who really has no tie here. All they're doing is is assessing the opportunity. We could move the ball a little further. And, since we're talking about African-American investors and entrepreneurs, I think that when an African-American or minority entrepreneur comes here and they get rejected, I think there's a tendency to say, oh, they turned me down because I'm black. But we turn everybody down.
It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. I'm an example.
It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. That's just our nature. You're not from here. We don't know you. The answer is no.
Yeah.
That statement too there's a bit of a dichotomy here of, I get it, right? Somebody from the outside that doesn't have those ties to the country club and whatnot, but it's the ties to the country club where the money is, right?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, and also, I think that, I don't know if you guys would agree with this or not, those ties used to exist more in funds that were actually making investments, and a lot of those funds exist in name, but there isn't actually a lot of active investment groups anymore in the city. It's not like it was 5 years ago or 6 years ago when everyone would come to Startup Week and it was super exciting and there was a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if you are raising capital in the city, it's more of a direct relationship or a one-on-one investment than it is through kind of like some type of an institutional type of investment. What I shared in my last talk is true. I had to step away from the city, and 2 months after I did that, I was able to raise a large seed round immediately. And the feedback I realized from that is, had I made that move a year before, 2 years before, I would have been able to raise and grow my company so much faster.
Right.
And that's something I've had to reconcile, is just a sense of, it's easy to fall in love with the city, but you also have to ask, is it setting you up to be successful?
Yeah. Our funds do not mitigate risk. Our funds concentrate risk. They all have a conference call. They go, are you going to invest? Are you going to do it? Well, oh, you're not going to do it? Well, I'm not going to do it. Oh, you're going to do it? Oh, yeah, I'm going to do it too then. Right? Yeah. It shouldn't operate that way, but that's exactly how it operates.
Definitely. It does. But look, Chris, I've told you this in the past. When I came to Startup Week, and I saw you presenting at Startup Week, is one of the reasons why I decided to come to Chattanooga. Right? It was another reason, from seeing a presentation, understanding of business, and understanding exactly what you were trying to accomplish. I understood your business model. I understand exactly where you're trying to go. And you being able to communicate that, and then seeing the supporting elements of people wanting you to succeed, really just intrigued me. And I was like, okay, I see what this is. I see from an entrepreneurial perspective, I see where there's the heartbeat, and I feel the heartbeat of what this can be. And I think that as an outsider, coming in and not understanding the inside elements of the relationships you have to build and the trust you have to build to be able to get at those funds and be able to get at those folks who have access to the funds is important. I've been a beneficiary of that, so I'm not gonna say anything super negative about that, because the people that have helped us out have been amazing. Like I'm a no bullshit dude, and that's what I'm saying. Typically like that. While things were challenging and have been challenging for us, the people that I've dealt with have been freaking amazing. As Monty had said, they have said no a lot, and I think that, had we been able to educate them faster, what's currently happening right now would be a monetization, not gold mine, but bit gold mine for what could be happening for the city overall, and so again, I think that it's just about time and opportunity, right?
Yeah.
But now that you have that, now that we have the experience, you can hold people accountable.
You just said.
There he is.
So what's interesting about what you just said is that one of the things we felt like was this amazing support group, right? There was lots of startups, there was lots of young companies that had struggled and made it, and access to them was free and easy, right? And so there felt like there was a lot of help and support. It's just the monetary piece of it was the primary hurdle. We felt like if we could get over the monetary hurdle, the rest of this is going to go easy. And I don't really mean that, but you know what I'm saying is that,
No,
that, you know, there was lots of people there that were willing to give us advice and talk to us and let us give our pitch to and give us feedback. And it was all great. It was all super helpful. We just couldn't get the money we needed.
Yeah.
And I think Monty's idea of having a monetization fund, I don't know what they called it, but I know that Jack Dempsey and Jay-Z just announced that they were doing like a Bitcoin monetization fund for tech interest in Africa, right? So essentially they're doing a fund where they're doing 500 Bitcoin or something like that they can't touch. And essentially what it comes of that is allowed to be used in reinvesting into entrepreneurial opportunities for the continent. Well, that should be localized, right? Programs like that should be happening and folks should be investing in the city so that when entrepreneurs like us come in and say, hey, okay, look, we understand that there's a different ballgame being played here and that we have to get to know people, right? But there is a critical mass point for us where things are going to fail if we don't get the support we need monetarily sooner than later. What benchmarks do we need to meet to be able to make sure that we don't fail in great ideas and concepts that can truly help in creating more jobs, driving more traffic to the city? You know what I mean? Not only just traffic, foot traffic, but the digital traffic that is truly important with regards to where ad dollars are definitely going right now, right? If you want to talk about consumption of ad dollars, why isn't the city involved in consuming ad dollars, right? And making properties available that they can, you know, get some of that revenue and then really scale it, especially when you have the best internet on the planet. It's like when I think having the best internet on the planet, I'm like, okay, well, that means I got the best ability to show the most ads. Like, that's the bottom line. You know, well, I didn't go to Harvard, Monty, but I know a little bit about economics. And if I can supply more speed, the demand for things is going to be a whole lot more effective. But anyways, again, I've seen both sides of it, you know, and I think that. And I'll step aside from the conversation on this portion with regard to investors and local investors, things of that nature, because, you know, the event that I did with regards to Bumble Bash, where we built a community, right? We built a 30-person, 40-person community that became active and traveling around the country to represent Chattanooga, right? That's what I wanted to see and love seeing of what our investment was into Chattanooga, or my own personal investment, right? Around an arcade cabinet, right? We were able to build a national presence about a comfortable space where people have told me, and I will say, I'm not going to say the names, but people have told me had this game not come into their lives, suicide was an option, right? Yeah. So that person became a more effective person in the community and society because they had something in a partnership in a safe space where they can meet, compete, and not be in a close, you know, not be so such in, right? That leads to national appeal to the point that a year later we have the national championships, right? We have the national championships at the Choo Choo, and all I'm hearing about is I ran out of cups to serve beer. We ran out of food to have, you know, we ran out of food to serve breakfast this morning. All of these great things for the vendors and local folks that were there. My partners and I did not make any money, right? I made money in the sense that I won because the specific thing I always wanted to do was say, and I said that I would do for the community, is like, I think that a gaming community centered around arcade culture will win here. You will impact nationally. You will impact the world. It happened. Now, I had to be willing to take a financial L. But moving forward, I know what it takes to get the wins in Chattanooga. I know where I need to do and where I need to place things so that those that have jobs that I might not be employing can make money. You know, one of the best things that I loved, and I remember going into, I can't remember, one of the riverfront restaurants, and I had one of the bartenders say, "Hey, you're Jamal." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You brought Bumble Bash into town." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, that's awesome." That was just so rad, brother. Like, I appreciate you for doing that. And I really, it's like, that's something we really needed. I made so much money this weekend. That made me feel so good, right? Because that's what it was about. As an entrepreneur, I'm supposed to be able to go out there and if I can't make jobs, I should be able to help others earn money.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, The other thing I was going to say to this that I've seen other cities do a better job of that makes a big difference, we can talk about investment, or we can talk about introductions that lead to actual business relationships. And when a city, has a good finger on the pulse of the companies that are in that city that are trying to build it, and they can pick up the phone and they can say, hey, let me introduce you to this business because I think that this will work, right? And they're actively facilitating building relationships. That's the best sign of a company. It's not investment. It's, well, what business are you doing and how are you growing? Right. And I think that a city has to be taking the lead to be able to help make those relationships and to want to make those relationships. Because ultimately, if you do that, everyone wins. And that makes getting investment so much easier because it's proof that you actually are working with customers and growing your revenue. And so I think that's one thing that I think should be top of mind for all of it is just like, how many introductions are you making between local founders and local businesses, particularly kind of like your big private sector businesses, to try to build those relationships early. Because that matters. I was when I was going through Techstars Austin, the city came to visit me and said, hey, we're going to fly you to Egypt, all expenses paid, to be able to meet with the Egyptian national government and all their museums, because we told them about you and we think that you could really make an impact. That changed my business so much, right? And it was because the city took the effort to make that relationship, and they did it without even talking to me first. I get emails all the time saying, well, let me introduce you to this organization. Let me introduce you to this. And that is the best feeling in the world because you really feel like you're supported in a monetary way.
So
yeah.
speaking
so let me ask this question. And you're beginning to touch on it, but what could the mayor of Chattanooga do, whether it's Monty Bruell or somebody else? We're going to get a new mayor in a couple of months here. What can that mayor do? And we have a strong mayor form of government here. The mayor here can do pretty much whatever he or she wants to do. So what would you advise the next mayor of Chattanooga to do?
I'd like to jump in on that real quick, just because I think that the networking component of this entire conversation is so important, right? Like, you got to have access to the people that can make something happen for businesses immediately, right? If they understand what they have in front of them, what the potential of what's in front of them can be from a long-term investment, right? From a long play. Don't look at it as, okay, well, we're going to make money this quarter so that I can put that in the books. Like, what's the long play on this business? How are they going to be able to drive? How are they going to be able to improve this community, especially when they're coming in, from out as an outsider? How are you going to be able to help the networking component to get those folks, those conversations with those funds and those guys that are at the country clubs when you can't afford to get in the country club? Like I said, I'll keep it 100. I'm not in that class. Like, I am a member of Council Fire. Like, I'm not gonna play like that's not it, right? And I enjoy that. That's the game I play, right? And I have to play that game. But I come from a different lineage, So that said, I don't forget where we all started, and I know what the hell I gotta do, and I know that for me to do that, my conversation, and everybody knows that when they see me, what I'm going to talk about. How are we going to help the next man? How are we? You know what I'm about to talk to you about, so don't turn around. You know what we're going to talk about. They might as well just call me Al Sharpton, right? You know what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to ask you for money to put in this certain area. Like, what you going to do? So, the networking component. How do you set people into? How does the mayor set people into the right networking component and really allows them to shine and get access to the things they need without having to build those long-term relationships that, if they don't have the time, like they might not have 5 years to wait to have to build a relationship.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Jamal is saying. I also think that what I've seen other cities do is they go to whatever the big businesses are that are in that city, and they hold reverse pitches, and they force those companies, don't force them, right? But they strongly suggest that those companies should hold a reverse pitch with actual dollars being associated with it to say, here is a specific problem I have that I need help solving. And then that way you're building those relationships between the companies, the big companies that call the city home, and trying to actually help a need to be solved by a local business, right? I think that there's, in small to mid cities around the country, there are specializations that are popping up that the cities are becoming known for. I have mixed feelings about it, but I mean, I think what it speaks to is whatever your private sector is really made of needs to be a part of driving the ecosystem in terms of innovation and new founders helping to become a part of that system. I also, though, said I would get rid of calling Chattanooga the gig city because every city has the gig. And
yeah, I'm sitting here. I will say this, though. The advantage of being in Chattanooga and being with the best gig is that when I complain about this gig, I have a point of reference, and it's amazing. So it's just phenomenal.
Well, I think I mentioned in my opening remarks that EPB is actually ready to go to 50 gig, a parallel 50 gig, but there's no hardware to support it. Right. So Chattanooga is waiting for the hardware manufacturers to catch up so that we can go even faster.
From the comfort of my home here in Columbus, Ohio, I can assure you Chattanooga is way, way faster.
Maybe it's just a rebranding. I don't know what you call like 50 gig city, but
yeah, you're right, and it's lost its luster now.
Yeah.
When it first came out, it was the only one, right? Chattanooga was the only place you could get that speed. You're right, you can get that speed, all over the place, but
yeah. So what makes us unique is our ability to offer the gig everywhere, right? There are cities where they have districts where you can get it, but whether you are in downtown Chattanooga or you are 20 miles away in Ottawa, you can get the gig in Chattanooga, and that's really what makes us different. Not that we have the gig, but that it's pervasive. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that it was funded by a public utility also makes it pretty unique. So
yeah.
Again, but that goes to the broader conversation like we talked about and we were talking about earlier. It's understanding of what you can do with it. We're of the mindset of, well, we know what's going on. We know what the power of that internet. We know what the power of that access is. I think that educating folks and understanding what can be done with it is such a big thing. Especially folks in rural communities that have access to it and don't understand what other rural communities don't have access to. Specifically from an educational perspective. Because access to education is everything, right? And if you want to talk, let's just talk to bare bones as an entrepreneur. If you want to make something happen for the city of Chattanooga, educate the people who don't have access to traditional education. It is a huge, Hamilton County is a huge county, right?
Right.
Chattanooga having the best internet means that you have the best form of creating something to help educate those that would normally not have access to an amazing education. And affording a good education, there's a difference between getting an education from someone who has gotten a job to pay the rent and is your teacher, to someone who is an intellectual who loves being educated and continues to educate themselves daily and loves disseminating that information, isn't worried about a clock.
Right.
Access to that education is more important. That education generally costs like $120,000 a year, right? A semester, excuse me.
Yeah.
Right? That education is not cheap. But with this internet, we do bring that all the way down. There's coursework and there's things that are now available that allow folks access to this education. Compile it correctly and give folks that access. I think that will change the community entirely and create a whole other sector of entrepreneurs that didn't even know they had access to it. And they were like, wait, I've got access to a Harvard education on my phone? I've got access to this. Like, what? Yes, for free. Right? For free. And that's the component of understanding, like, what does the gig do for me? Well, the gig can educate you.
Yeah. People like to say that, Steve Jobs didn't graduate from college, and that is true. He didn't. but that doesn't mean he didn't go to college. I mean, Steve Jobs
Right.
enrolled in college because he didn't like the degree requirements. He didn't want to take core curriculum or any of that, but he went to college classes. He audited, a lot of college, but he just did what he needed, what he wanted. It was just for his own personal satisfaction and to satisfy his own intellectual curiosity. And that is available to anybody. Like you said, Jamal, you can take a Harvard class for free. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. You won't get the degree, but you can get access to the knowledge and the information.
I think, though, you're raising another interesting question, Jamal, when you said that there's a difference between a teacher that's there because it pays the rent and those that are lifelong learners. And I think the other side of that coin is there's a difference between those that are there to pay the rent and those that are there because they're truly passionate about student learning. Those are the teachers that I got magic from, right? Those are the teachers that I still remember today. And, I'm at a small art and design school now. And, those are the teachers in my, in my team that the students respond to, that the students find amazing and impactful, and because they're passionate about it. That's a harder nut to crack, I think.
Yeah, and I've been in conversations with different folks in Chattanooga about, being able to attract better educators, or being able to attract tier 1 or tier 2 researchers to be able to enhance what is the offerings that the different colleges and universities can offer in Chattanooga. And I think that as the word and as the media allows Chattanooga and the breadth of what Chattanooga is as a whole can grow, and as Chattanooga itself changes and accepts what it needs to be, to be a bigger player, to provide the jobs and the opportunities that it should have coming in, then things will change. I think that's one of the challenges that you'll have as mayor, is being able to really get that mindset of outside interest is okay as long as it's benefiting us all for the long term. And so that means if this person wants to come in here and educate my kid and have a relationship with this generation of kids for the right reason, I want to accept them, and I want to make sure that I help them further whatever it is they're doing so that they're happy being here. Because many entrepreneurs now aren't just doing many teachers who are entrepreneurs aren't just teaching, they're teaching for their passion, but they also have some great ideas and great businesses that they have that need funding. And they should get that funding.
Right.
Because they're doing both sides of the coin correctly. They're playing both sides of it correctly. So
I have this question every year around the time that the ESPY Awards are presented, which is, we're celebrating as a nation athletes that are passionate about what they do, which is one of the reasons they're good at what they do. But imagine if we had that same level of celebration and enthusiasm for teachers and firefighters and nurses. Think about how society would be different, how we would value an education differently if we approach that in that manner.
I agree. I think that the best way to get society to acclimate is for shows like the ESPYs and shows like the Grammys to highlight those people as part of the point, so that we can start essentially integrating who those folks are and the impact they're making on a national level and a global level. Because in the day, with Disney having the National Teachers Awards, and things of that nature, that's open. Because they're never going to have, the Bruno Mars or Billie Eilish or whoever performing.
Right.
Right? That they're not going to have those performers there. The budget isn't as big for that. The ratings aren't as high.
Right.
But these shows should be, and I come from that world, these shows should be more responsible in saying, we're going to take 1 minute, right? That's it, of the